closed. Schools closed. Daycares still open. But why?
I have to be very, very clear. Our needs will far outweigh our resources.
Oregon is behind on coronavirus testing. We already know that. But that could change soon, and for the better. Man, it feels good to have some good news. And don't you dare start thinking Portland has stopped being Portland, even during what seems like the crisis of our lifetimes. Here's the story.
Man, this week has been a long month, hasn't it? How's everybody doing? Thanks for taking out a little time of your social isolation to spend it with us. I'm Dan Haggerty. This is The Story. Forgive my little attempt at humor. I usually swing and miss. We're trying to find ways to cope with this insane moment in history. We're doing our best to try and answer some of your questions. So let us know what you're thinking. I know I talk a lot, but I'm also a good listener. So let us hear it. Use the hashtag #HeyDan. Email us. Message me on Facebook. Anything. And while you're at it, don't forget to wash your hands. Now, today, like most days, we've learned a lot more about this crisis we have on our hands, so to speak. First, and most urgently, I think Mayor Wheeler's office confirmed literally just a few minutes ago that he is considering ordering people to shelter in place here in the city. Again, just a consideration right now. There's no timeline for this decision even. They're waiting to get some guidance from health experts, but it's not out of the ordinary. I mean, 6 counties in the Bay Area are under shelter-in-place orders right now for the next 3 weeks, and it means that you would have to stay inside as much as possible. Again, this is not happening here yet. Nothing's been confirmed, but we need to be ready just in case an order like that does come down. Now, we learned today that 2 more people have died in Oregon for a total of 3 now confirmed coronavirus-linked deaths. We also learned about 10 more positive cases for COVID-19. So that brings our total in the state of Oregon to 75. And that is the bad news today. But we do have a little bit of good news. We found out Providence can now process coronavirus testing in its labs. So far, those tests are only going to be for people who they determine to be quote-unquote sick enough. I'm not exactly sure what that means right now, but we're trying to find out all the details. The governor also said they're working with a private company to get 20,000 tests in Oregon, and 5,000 of them could be here any day. But I want to talk about today and something that's directly affecting a lot of you as we speak. It's certainly top of mind for me, and that's childcare during COVID-19. Now, yesterday, Governor Brown dropped that bombshell that schools are going to stay closed until at least April 28th. That is 6 weeks, no school, and a lot of parents are scrambling right now. Her executive order also said schools will provide learning support, meals, and childcare for essential healthcare professionals and fire responders. It also says that several state departments will assist with mental health services. But we've been hearing from some parents with toddlers and babies. Tessa Daly emailing us and asked, "Hey Dan, my daughter works in the daycare industry. There's been little to nothing mentioned in regard to daycares." Well, the governor explained today why daycare services are staying open while schools are closing.
Right now, we need to make sure our healthcare providers and first responders can do their jobs. Providing childcare is a critical way to support them. Every state governor that I talk to understands that they have to do this in order to support our healthcare system.
Now, as you know, my focus is on Oregon and parts of Washington right here on The Story, but I'm watching news from all over, and I can't be the only one who noticed that Kansas's governor is closing schools through the entire rest of the year. California actually reportedly looking at doing the same thing. Now, Governor Brown was asked about that, and she said that they are looking at all their options. As for kids and how they're going to make up that time, she says the Board of Education can waive instructional time, but she has no idea how this is going to impact graduating seniors. And honestly, if you ask me, it doesn't really seem like it's top of mind right now for her office, considering that they're also addressing rumors that she's considering ordering Oregonians all over the state to shelter in place.
I will just say right now, all options are on the table to preserve the health and safety of Oregonians.
Now, some school districts, they're finding ways the best they can to adapt to these weird times, teaching online. Elementary schoolers in Estacada, for instance, they took home work packets, and middle schoolers and high schoolers got to take home some laptops. They're required to check in with the teachers every day.
We also were able to identify students that do not have internet. We distributed about 80 hotspots to serve students that did not have internet.
Apparently, they keep those laptops around just in case for bad weather or something, or in this case, an unexpected pandemic. So way to be prepared, Estacada. Really nicely done. They're also making sure that kids get some sack lunches, too, because half of the kids in that district alone are on free or reduced lunch. Now, the governor addressed something else in her phone conference this morning, and that's why kids are staying at home, even though they're at the least risk right now. And I do think that there is a little bit of confusion about kids and risk. They can contract the virus and pass it on just like anybody else. In fact, kids and hand washing don't really go hand in hand, pardon the pun. They have a low risk of getting seriously ill, but they can still give you the virus. Governor Inslee made his own announcements in Washington today. He enacted statewide moratoriums on evictions for at least the next 30 days. He waived the one-week period before people can access unemployment insurance as well. Washington is very much at the center of the outbreak in the U.S. Their latest numbers show 1,187 total confirmed cases of COVID-19 and 66 deaths linked to the virus. But they've been testing a lot more people than we have here in Oregon. They've been testing a lot more people than most states. So nearly 16,000 people have tested negative for the virus in Washington. All right, let's do our big story right now. Now, it's one thing to talk about the impact that this pandemic is having on all of us, you, me, people who are home and feeling pretty healthy, but our doctors and our government, they are warning us that we don't have enough supplies and beds for people who get sick. In fact, just a few minutes ago, Governor Brown directed Oregon hospitals, clinics, dentists, even veterinarians to stop all emergency procedures to preserve their equipment, things like surgical masks and gloves. Oregon is also setting up more space on the fairgrounds in Salem. They bought this spot right here, an empty building, a couple years ago just in case of an emergency, and yeah, I think this qualifies. They hope to add 250 beds there by Friday. And this morning, the governor of New York tweeted this photo up of a giant ship. It's called the Comfort. It's basically a big floating hospital. And the feds have decided to dock it off the East Coast and use it to treat the surge of patients. The president today said that they're also going to dock one somewhere off the West Coast, but they haven't decided where yet. That ship is going to be called the Mercy. So that helps with one problem, hospital capacity, but there is another, depleting medical supplies. And local doctors say they're going to run out, and they're going to run out soon. Here's Maggie Vespa.
Amid a big global pandemic, it literally is the little things that have doctors and politicians fearing the worst. The president here talking about masks.
Are incredible. We've ordered millions of them, but we need millions more. A thing like this has never been requested, and we've never had to even think in terms of these numbers.
This morning, the president acknowledged a shortage of medical-grade masks, gloves, and other PPEs, or personal protective equipment. But doctors nationwide are also warning of a looming shortage of ventilators. Going by the numbers, the Society of Critical Care Medicine has projected 960,000 Americans will need to be put on ventilators during this outbreak. But the U.S. only has about 200,000. President Trump this morning announced he's invoked the Defense Production Act to buy and produce medical supplies of all kinds, as if we need them for war.
But there's never been an instance like this where no matter what you have, it's not enough.
Locally, agencies are already rationing. Kaiser Permanente confirmed to KGW it's closing 11 clinics in the area starting tomorrow. We got this list late today. It's on our website and social media feeds now. Some appointments at these spots will be postponed. Others will be moved to virtual visits. And a main goal here is to conserve these supplies for doctors treating COVID-19 patients. That announcement from Kaiser came after this press conference yesterday and this dire warning from Multnomah County Health Officer Jennifer Vines.
We anticipate that the way that we're using them now at our current what we call burn rate, that supplies may be depleted in approximately 2 weeks.
That's a local Portland area prediction. Statewide, there is a stockpile of this stuff, but the Oregon Health Authority confirms it's running dry. Doctors have already used 28% of the N95 or respiratory masks, 63% of surgical masks, and 83% of surgical gowns. It's enough to make people in other industries want to pitch in.
We had loads of them. I actually just got a case yesterday, or a few days ago.
Laura Tigert is an esthetician and owner of Opaline Skin Studio in Northwest Portland. She has boxes of medical-grade gloves, masks, and disinfectant wipes that she now can't use. Last night, she put a call out on social media asking for others in the same boat who can help. At a time when paychecks have flat out stopped, no one is thinking twice about donating.
I know that this is going to be very devastating to a lot of people in our industry because a lot of us are self-owners. And so it makes, hopefully, if we can contribute and help the medical field get this under control a little bit easier and faster, then we can go back to work and do what we love and helping our clients.
Now, just to remind everybody, typically this would be where Maggie and I were in the studio talking about her story, but we have a lot of our reporters, Maggie included, working remotely right now, not coming into the newsroom for obvious reasons. So she joins us right now from her apartment, actually. So just this afternoon, Maggie, we saw some late developments and things actually starting to come together in this. Can you talk about that a bit?
Yeah, Dan, that's right. So as you heard in that piece, basically there are a lot of people who work in medical fields or fields where they need that kind of gear who want to donate. And we just found out from the county that they are opening up locations starting tomorrow morning to do that. That's 2 locations starting tomorrow. The Portland Fire Logistics Warehouse at Southeast 13th and Gideon. It's 1300 Southeast Gideon. And the Multnomah County Health Department, which is at 619 Northwest 6th Avenue. It's across from Union Station. So those are 2 locations starting tomorrow, open basically normal business hours, Monday through Friday, where people who, again, have those supplies can come and drop them off. They'll be distributed to local hospitals in the Portland metro area. So that's a big deal. We also were told earlier today the Governor Kate Brown, is working on a similar system to impact hospitals statewide to help them with these shortages. She hasn't made that final yet or come up with the details yet. We don't have a timeline on that, but when we find out how that's going to work, we'll obviously make it widely known and let everybody know.
And those addresses, again, if you at home are wondering the specific locations we can do these drop-offs, yeah. Maggie, you have those shared on social media and stuff like that?
We do, yeah.
Okay. Also, and I want to reiterate this to everyone at home because I know so many people are looking to help out right now. We're talking about medical grade equipment, right?
We are, yeah. So you and I were just talking. This does not mean that your cleaning gloves are needed, as nice as that, of the thought that would be. This is medical grade supplies. So like the woman that you saw in the piece, she's an esthetician. She has gloves that are of this standard. She has them sitting in her back room, and she's hearing about this shortage, and she's thinking, I don't need these right now. Let me give those to the doctors and medical workers on the front line. So that's what we're talking about here.
Got it, Maggie. Thank you. Also to everyone at home, keep sending in those questions, those comments. If you're curious about what's happening with medical supplies, how you can help out, please reach out to us. Use the hashtag #HeyDan. All right, it's that time of the show where we touch base with Kristen Severance, who's been taking all of the questions you're sending in using the hashtag #HeyDan and trying to answer all of them. I'm talking like hundreds over the past couple days.
We've been getting so many questions. I mean, I have questions, and it really helps, when people send these in because we all learn something. So this one is from Jen. It says, are you allowed to sit down and eat at food cart pods? How do food cart pods regulate the amount of people in the pod? And how do food carts fit in this situation?
It's a good question because technically they're all takeout.
They are. So they're allowed to be open. I talked to Dr. Kim Taves with Multnomah County Health. She said, look, get it to go. Don't stand in a group of 10 people while you wait for your food, and don't sit at a picnic table with a bunch of other people, with a bunch of other strangers. Just get your food and get out of there.
Makes sense. What else you got?
All right, so the next question, Dan, are teachers being paid? And if so, are they earning their money preparing lessons? That's from Doug Walters on Twitter. So we do know that teachers are being paid per Governor Kate Brown's order. In terms of, preparing lessons, districts are really trying to figure all of this out, when they come back, if they come back. In terms of what teachers are doing during this time off, I know some of the teachers at Woodlawn, where I'm doing, a whole year-long series, they spent today feeding kids, helping the community, making sure kids are fed.
And that reminds me, teachers out there, let us know what you're doing. I know that you're all working hard during your time off to do the best for the families that go to your school. So reach out to us, use the hashtag #HeyDan. We'd love to hear what's going on at your school and in your neighborhoods.
Yeah, those will be some good stories. Next, this is a good one. Hey Dan, how long does the sanitizing effect of hand sanitizer last? Does it just help with the germs on your hands when you apply it, or does it last a while? This is from Karen. We did so much research on this because it's such a good question. Everything that we read, you want to wash your hands using soap and water. I mean, that is really the very best thing that you can do. I know we keep saying it, but when you do the research and you talk to the experts, you want to wash your hands. In terms of hand sanitizer, it only lasts for like 2 minutes. And you really should just use it if you can't wash your hands. And you really have to think about if you touch something, so whether you wash your hands or you use hand sanitizer, if you touch something, you're going to get germs on your hands.
Yeah, when we say wash your hands, we don't mean once a day.
Right.
Keep washing your hands, right? All right,
yeah,
got
keep
it.
doing it over and over. And our last question, this is another Twitter question. This is very confused why the federal government says social distance under 10 people. Oregon says under 25. We have gotten this question so many times. Okay, so when Governor Brown, passed these rules, and when she did her news conference, she said, okay, no events, 25 people and over.
Right.
But in that same breath, she said, but she recommends what the CDC recommends, not having groups of 10. So I would say do not have groups of 10. I don't know why she just didn't make the ban groups of 10, and her people won't answer us on that.
Right.
But I think, really to be safe, just don't get in groups.
Yeah, I think all of us kind of caught her drift there. We know what she's talking about. Don't overthink some of this stuff. I think we all want all of these questions answered, but use your instincts on some of them, right? Big groups or any large groups, if you don't have to meet with anybody, it's best to kind of keep to yourself for a little while and keep that social distance. In the meantime, keep all of the questions coming. Kristen is working really hard with a whole team of people to answer them for you. Use the hashtag #HeyDan. Kristen, thank you.
You're welcome.
There is no known cure for COVID-19, but don't tell this Southeast Portland CBD store. And about the census, is that even still happening, during literally everything else that's going on? Well, yeah, and it's actually kind of easy to do while socially distancing. We'll explain when the story continues.
Hey, welcome back, and as always, thanks to everyone for reaching out, saying hello, giving us your questions and thoughts using the hashtag #HeyDan. We're getting a lot of medical questions, which frankly are almost always out of my expertise unless we consult an expert, and I am no expert, but I do know that CBD is not a cure for coronavirus, and we spotted this sign at Lumi Wellness Shop on Southeast Powell yesterday. It says COVID lung support immunity tinctures, whatever those are. I had to ask somebody. Maybe you know. Now listen, we're not narcs, okay? But we're in the middle of a public health crisis here, so we made an exception and we called the Attorney General's office here, who ordered the company to take that sign down under the Unlawful Trade Practices Act. They also provided us with our quote of the day. They said, "There are no cures for COVID-19. Please don't try to sell something that suggests there are." Now, the company told us that they were not being malicious in their advertising there, and it wasn't their intent to suggest that their product could make you immune to the virus. We got a good question from Jeff Burling, who asked, "Hey Dan, how will this pandemic affect the U.S. Census?" That is a good question, Jeff. Thank you for asking it. And we just today learned that the U.S. Census Bureau is suspending all of its field operations to try and flatten the curve. But the nice thing about the census this time around is it can be completed online. People are already getting these forms in the mail. So as soon as you get one, go ahead and fill it out online and be counted, even during a pandemic. Now, here's something that we think is worth your time, whether you agree with it or not. The New York Times published an opinion piece titled "Cancel, the Olympics, It was written by a political scientist at the Pacific University in Forest Grove. Jules Boykoff criticizes the International Olympic Committee by not being forward-thinking. They've been saying since the beginning of the outbreak that they have no plans to cancel the Olympics. But if you've noticed, literally every other event pretty much across the planet has been canceled at this point. Now, look, we all have personal feelings about this. Personally, I don't want the Olympics to be canceled. I don't want any of this to be happening. I think we can all agree on that. But the Olympics specifically because I'm supposed to go and cover it for KGW and for this part of the country. But if it's a matter of safety, if it's about thousands and thousands of people meeting in one place and then going off and going back to their homes and maybe spreading a virus, I guess the smart thing is to call it off. Like I said, even if you don't want the Olympics to be canceled, give this a read. It's in the New York Times. It's, I think, good to have a different perspective.
Thanks so much, Dan. And speaking of the New York Times, another article from the Times that we're going to touch on. And the Times, by the way, has made at least all of their coronavirus content free. You don't have to have a subscription. That might be true for all of it. I'm not quite sure about that, but at least their coronavirus content is available without a subscription. All right, so this one, and we talked about this a couple weeks ago, how the footprint of pollution decreased so much in China when they locked that country down. People stopped driving. One of the outputs of driving a car is nitrous dioxide. It's a pollution, and it's easily visible from one of the sensors on one of the European satellites. So they show this now for Italy, and you can see this is from December to March of 2018 to 2019. So last year, see how the yellow is, the big population centers of Venice and Milan. That means there's been a lot of people driving, a lot of pollution there. Let's slide on over to this year, December 2019. to March 2020, and it's much, much less. So again, the output or the effect of this is being seen on the satellite imagery. And the same thing, again, we'll go back to China. In fact, I'm going to switch to a still image of this over here at the weather wall and give you a better look at this in this perspective because it's not moving. But again, this is January, early January in China. That's all pollution, nitrous dioxide as measured by the European Space Agency satellite. This was February of the same year, this year, and there's hardly anything on this map, including around the big city of Beijing, because, of course, as I'm sure you're aware, China locked it down. People weren't driving. The pollution levels absolutely dropped. Now, I tried to see if we could see this here in the Northwest. Not yet. The imagery isn't quite as good, but I'm sure as time goes by, or I suspect as time goes by, we'll see similar maps across North America. So again, it's really obvious the impact. And if you think about this, you think about all the people not moving around, that's exactly what needed to happen in China, and most officials who are experts in that matter say they pretty much captured lightning in a bottle by stopping the virus in its tracks the way they did. And again, it's visible by the lack of pollution over that period of some weeks. All right, for us, beautiful sky. This is the Reserve Golf Course. You can see we had the clearing that happened after some clouds around this morning. It's clear out at the coast at the moment, 49 degrees there. And the winds are light. And we're going to have more great weather to come tonight. Generally clear. Tomorrow, mostly sunny. And we'll see highs in the low 60s tomorrow, so even warmer than today. Spring begins tomorrow night. We'll have sunshine for the first full day of spring. Sunshine and warm weather for the first weekend of spring. And then the rain sets in next week.
Good stuff, Matt. Thank you so much. Now, if you have seen this show before, and hopefully you have, you know that we like to do things a little bit differently. Well, right now, every newscast everywhere is focused on coronavirus, and obviously we are too, but we want to take some time and bring you some of the stories that you might not be seeing anywhere else, and we're going to go back to our old school news roots to do it in a segment we like to call In Other News. In other news, West Lynn has paid out about $1.5 million in settlements involving the police department over the past 10 years. That's according to new records obtained by the Oregonian. Last month, a Portland man got a $600,000 settlement for a wrongful arrest involving the former West Lynn police chief. Michael Fesser says he reported racial harassment at work to his boss, who then asked his friend, the police chief, to frame him in a fake theft case. Other settlements over the past decade went to officers who were fired or forced to resign for reasons they claimed were unjust. The University of Oregon just approved new tuition rates. For current students, tuition will go up by 3% every year until they graduate. Incoming students will have to pay about 11% more. Out-of-state students will pay about 7% more. These costs will be locked in place for the next 5 years. Right now, in-state tuition is a little less than $13,000 a year, and out-of-state tuition is about $36,000 a year. If you're a little tight on cash right now, you might be in luck. The Oregon Lottery just released the winning numbers for its St. Patrick's Day raffle. The top prize is $1 million. Let me check my ticket, make sure I even have to keep reading this. Okay, I do. There's more than 1,000 other prizes, though, of $100 to $500. You can check out the winning numbers at OregonLottery.org. And that's In Other News. All right, keeping Portland weird tonight, as if we need things to get weirder than they already are. The Willamette Week learned about strippers delivering food right to your door, and it's called, wait for it, Boober Eats. How about that? Way to go, Portland. If you see anything keeping Portland weird out there, or helping out in an extra weird time, let us know about it. Use the hashtag HeyDan or email us the story at kgw.com. I want to read a couple of comments and questions we got tonight. Robert Drake writing in, hey Dan, if all the restaurants are closed, why don't they donate their gloves to hospitals? I actually had the same thought right away, but after talking to Maggie Vespa, who did the report on the medical supplies tonight, they need it to be kind of industrial strength stuff. It needs to be medical supplies, not necessarily what you would use in your kitchen. And then Marjorie saying, I want to volunteer my time to help. Who needs me? That's a great question, and we're looking to talk a little bit more about advocacy here on the story, so we're going to work on that for you. And I want to show you some people have been sending in their home offices. That looks good. Look, you got fruit from the store, too. That's tough to find nowadays. Way to go. Thank you so much to everybody writing in, showing us their home offices, giving us their questions and comments and everything right here. We appreciate it as always. Without you, we are nothing. This is The Story.